Hey guys, Adam Fennig here with Fennig Equipment. You're tuned into the Talking Shed. Hey, you just saw some footage of a Salford 570 running here behind me. Today is April 20th, and it's a beautiful day here in Ohio. Temps are actually finally warming up a little bit after the cool, wet spell we've had in the last couple weeks, really. But I had Grandpa on the tractor there, and I wanted to run that Salford over this field. What we're going to do on this field is basically no-till some soybeans, of course, after the Salford. But the reason I've got that Salford out here, and the reason that those Salfords work so well in the spring, is doing exactly what we're doing today. We're breaking this crust. So I'm going to flip the camera around here in a little bit and show you what kind of crust we've got. We're fairly dry, I guess, but we just need to break that crust because there's some moisture under there, and it's going to take a long time for that stuff to get sucked up whenever it's got that crust caked on top of it. So what the Salford does is several things. Number one, it vertically fractures. So those coils go through the field and shatter and vertically fracture and remove compaction downward. That's one thing. They also break this crust so that we can get some of those wetter balls. This is actually a top crust right here, and this is underneath it. If you can see that at all, top crust where it's dry, but underneath it, it's wet. So the Salford's going through here, breaking that crust, allowing it to warm up, allowing it to air out and dry out, so that 2 inches below where my seed's actually going to go, we're warmer and we're drier versus just no-tilling into this underneath the crust. Not only that, but this was corn stalks, obviously, you can see this past fall. So the Devastator ran through here. You've seen the Devastator videos we've done, and that does a great job of managing the residue. But bring the Salford through here and chop those things up even more, and those stalks are basically non-existent. At this point, we're basically relying on our row cleaners on the planter and our closing wheels to do the rest of the work. The row cleaners are going to move this residue, move some of this dirt out of the way so that we've got a clean path we're planting into, and those closing wheels are going to close that slot and pinch that seed down in without any air pockets below the soil and get that stuff growing in maybe some of these wetter, cooler conditions. So once we no-till soybeans into here, we are really relying on a perfect planter setup, and that is one that's got really good row cleaners up front and one that's got a really good closing wheel system out the back. So I'm going to turn the camera around and show you the difference between the crusted field prior to running the Salford and then what it looks like after. And I'm telling you, Grandpa was even surprised at how well that worked up here just a little bit ago. The mentality is that we're pretty dang wet, but you get out here in the field and run a tool like that, and with this wind blowing, that's going to dry out very quickly. It's something we can maybe play with tomorrow. So the Salford tools can really gain you quite a few days when you're wet. And right ahead, you know, all those gang machines, they would be moving dirt side to side. They'd be creating a smearing effect, and they would create a ton of compaction out here this time of year when it's mellow, when it's wet. You would do a lot of damage with those angled gang machines. The true vertical tillage Salfords do a phenomenal job, and they don't have negative repercussions that the gang machines do. So I'm going to flip this around and talk about the crust. So right here is what it looked like before we ran the Salford. You know, basically there's residue on top, and there's a crust. There's a hard crust right there. And so, but it's wet underneath. It looks nice and dry on top. Right here you can see these cracks. It looks dry, but underneath we know it's not. So if you just leave it lay like this, it's going to stay wet for quite some time. We come over here to where we ran the Salford, and you can see we worked up the ground just a little bit. It's nice and it's mellow, and that's something, it cracked that crust. That crust is virtually gone. It really ate up the residue, created a nice smooth seed bed, and this stuff is going to air out and it's going to warm up very well, and it's something that we'll be able to plant in probably 2 to 3 days sooner than if we would have just waited for that crusted stuff to dry out. So that's what we're doing today. I don't know how long it's going to take for Grandpa to get the itch to hook up to the planter, but after seeing him in that tractor wanting to do this whole field, it probably won't take too long. So that's what we're doing today. Thanks for tuning in.